Jordan. Tonight we will be doing a deep dive into a species that has been shocking, Ernie Mojo. Years on Ernie Mojo, a species has evolved that could be very well be referred to as a super species. Through fossil dating and carbon dating, we have been able to discover how the species originally came about. The species is called Sui Urus, which roughly translates to independence. This name came about due to the creature's amazing ability to be self-sustained, which we will get into later. In early times, the species began as a producer that was capable of turning harmful gases in the atmosphere into a food and nutrients that it would need to survive, similar to a plant on the planet Earth. The species had a symbiotic relationship with a flying species that lived in the region. It was able to maintain reproduction by having its seeds passed from one urus to another. Then the urus would release a sac that would slowly grow into a new urus. The flying species got food out of this and, of course, was able to stay alive due to the urus's ability to turn harmful gases into nutrients. Over time, the flying species was forced out of the habitat due to an invasive predator species. The pre-urus, the name of the early species of the Sioux urus, had no way to reproduce because of the moving out of the flying species. Over a few short years of minimal growth, the urus began to spread like wildfire and managed to, in only a few generations, to adapt to self-fertilize. It is one of the most impressive feats of any species on Ernie Mojo. The Provectus urus, the next name in the evolutionary history of the Sioux urus, was able to evolve to produce small amounts of poisonous gas, just enough to keep itself going. The only thing the Sioux urus needs to this day is the land that it rests on. Even that can be temporary because the urus is capable of slowly fleeing areas if necessary. If a necessary situation were to arise, like if its gas spring were to seal up, which is unlikely but possible. This makes the species truly independent. Now for some facts on the Sioux urus. It survives on only nutrients it produces for itself, like mentioned earlier, similar to a plant on the planet Earth. Um, Also, as stated earlier, it turns harmful gases in the atmosphere that would kill most species in the temperate forest habitat. It is located in the temperate deciduous forest and is really suited purely for this habitat. Although the urus is able to produce its own gases to sustain itself, this is really only a backup mechanism. It is able to survive on the gases being produced by the gas springs that exist throughout the forest. The species is unique in that while it does produce food for surrounding organisms, and many organisms do prey on said fruit, but it does not necessarily belong on the food web because it does not require any nutrients from decomposed organisms, nor does it require an extraneous energy source. This is the only discovered species that is completely self-sufficient. That this makes it so that it doesn't require a relationship with any other organism. Other species do, however, require the urus. Without the urus's capability to filter out harmful chemicals from the air and produce food, the temperate forest would likely be desert of all natural resources and most organic life. The Sioux urus manages to self-replicate by fertilizing itself and then dropping an egg sac with its genetic information that is able to grow into a new urus. The community surrounding the urus is not a very complex one. There are many primary consumers that prey upon the fruit of the urus, something that brings absolutely no harm or gain to the species. There are also a few secondary and tertiary consumers that prey upon the primary ones. There are many giant trees, both coniferous and deciduous, in the region, but primarily deciduous. Naturally, the environment has many producers, but still the urus does the most for all species in the ecosystem. Now we are going to take a look at the phylogenetic tree of the Sioux urus. The Sioux urus started off as the Prima urus, which was just a synthetic being, and then it slowly evolved into two species that branched off, one being the Pre-urus and one being the Doe urus. The Doe urus quickly died off because it was not able to survive in the harmful gases, but the Pre-urus was able to survive in the harmful gases. But as mentioned earlier, when the flying species was forced out of the environment, the Pre-urus evolved into Provectus urus, which branched down to the Urus and the Sioux urus, which both still survive in the temperate deciduous forests of Ernie Mojo, the Urus has all the same capabilities as a Sioux Urus, except for it does not create its own gas. So that if the gases were ever to seal up, it would die off because it wouldn't be able to sustain its own growth. Um, Now that is all we have on the Sioux Urus. Thank you all for watching tonight. This has been Channel 1 News. Remember, we cover all your news on the evolution, speciation, adaptation, and everything in between. And those are all artifacts.